Hi, people. I'm going to make this quite brief because there's a lot happening and I want to see the news on the hour. The big story today, Liz Truss has resigned. It was not totally shocking. It was clear that she was under mounting pressure. I didn't think it would come today. I thought it would be a little bit later, but it's come. Um, I had a lesson actually, and just before the lesson, as I was having lunch, it said that Truss was meeting Sir Graham Brady of the 1922 committee. Her options were being explored, but yeah, it's happened. I think probably, I imagine family would have had a word with her, would have spoken to her, and sort of, it's almost like to go out with dignity at this point, because I think really, if she'd stayed on, it would have she would have been a lame duck prime minister. Um, it's being reported she's had a 45-day premiership. It's going to be a little bit longer, 53 days, because she will stay on as Prime Minister whilst this new contest takes place. The good news is it's not going to be prolonged. I think it was a big mistake that the last contest was so spun out. I've said that before. So it's going to be 1 week, really. We'll know the new Prime Minister on the 28th of October. Of course, Starmer's calling for a general election. That makes total sense from the opposition point of view, but the Tories aren't going to agree to it, and they're going to keep falling back on, well, in our parliamentary system, we don't directly elect the prime minister, or it's the party that elects the prime minister. But whoever now succeeds Truss will be the fifth Conservative leader in a row, and the second to be not elected by the public. So there's questions around that. Maybe it's time for some sort of constitutional change. But 53 days in office, which will be on the 28th of October, it's, I mean, what's happened in this time? How do we sum up Liz Truss's premiership? The mini budget, support for Ukraine, give her due. That's, it's about the only thing that we can point to that she's achieved. The eco protests, that's something I'll remember from this period. And of course, the state funeral of the Queen and the ascendancy of Charles III. Huge thing. Um, I think it's embarrassing for the King. I think it's embarrassing for the country. George Canning had a mere 119 days in power in 1827, then he died. Viscount Godric, who succeeded him, 144 days in office, then resigned. And he was the shortest premiership, or they were the shortest premierships before now. But Canning's premiership was 3 times as long as Truss's. I mean, that's saying something. So part of me feels sorry for her, but that budget, everyone warned against it. Apparently, there was a furious row with Suella Braverman yesterday. The BBC was reporting from Sunderland, um, my city. Hugh Edwards, Faisal Islam were up here in the Stadium of Light. There was special reports from Sunderland throughout the day. So it really has been a very turbulent time in British politics. Um, who are the runners now? Well, Hunt's ruled himself out. I think he wants to focus on the budget. I think whoever succeeds Truss probably will keep on some people in the great offices of state because I mean, Grant Shapps has been Home Secretary for a day. Um, Hunt just a little bit longer as Chancellor. I think some of those people are going to keep their jobs. Usually, a new leader, a new prime minister has a totally fresh cabinet. I think this time, because this is exceptional circumstances, some of those people are going to stay in post. I think Hunt will. Um, a lot of talk is that Johnson will put his name in the hat. I certainly have misgivings about that for the reasons I've previously stated. I think Johnson's corrupt, and I think he is a big part of the Tories' problem in the first place. But I get that he's popular with the base. Conservative friends of mine like him. Um, Sunak was the favourite. Many would argue Sunak should have got the leadership rather than Truss. Penny Mordaunt is quite a heavyweight candidate. She done well in the leadership election. Suella Braverman's putting name forward. I don't think that's going to happen. I think there's something a bit shady about Suella Braverman. Like you could say they're all opportunistic, but there's just something about Suella Braverman I don't trust. Can't quite put my finger on it. Ben Wallace is popular. How well is he known to the wider public? Um, he's a good defense secretary. He may want to stay in that role. Um, and is it wise to have so many changes at a time when Russia is doing what it's doing? What this country really, really needs is stability. So it's good that they're wrapping this up within a week. Our next prime minister is either going to be Rishi Sunak, Boris Johnson Mark II. It's happened before. Harold Wilson came back in 1976. Churchill came back in 1951. So there has been times in modern history. I mean, it happened all the time in the 18th and 19th centuries. Gladstone had four separate terms of office, but in the modern period, it's quite rare. Harold Wilson and Winston Churchill are the only two examples. Um, so it could happen. Johnson could come back, but I personally would have big misgivings about that. So Rishi Sunak, Suella Braverman, Penny Mordaunt, Ben Wallace hasn't announced plans yet, but probably he'll be pushed to run. I imagine he'll have one big debate, and that will be it. Incredible times in British politics. And today, it's well. Liz Truss has now earned herself a point as a pub quiz question: Who is Britain's shortest-serving prime minister? Um, I, I have some sympathy with her. I mean, it's not exactly a claim to be proud of, but just to be fair, her support for Ukraine is to be lauded and her tough stance with Russia. But it's hard to see what else she achieved in this short time in office. Let me know your thoughts.